Thank you, Reed Corporate, for giving me the invitation to present, and thank you all for turning up for the first session. I won't get into talking about forecasts of supply and demand for lithium. I think that we'll leave the crystal ball gazing to others. But what I do know is that hundreds of billions of dollars are being spent downstream by OEMs, car manufacturers. They're doing it not because they want to save the planet, they're doing it because they know that it's a massive marketing opportunity for themselves. So I'm still a bit of a believer in the demand thematic. But what I thought I'd do is just give you a different perspective on lithium. Just bear with me. So if you Google, what does lithium do for your brain? It says that lithium acts on the person's central nervous system. That's your brain and spinal cord. Doctors don't know exactly how lithium works to stabilise a person's mood, but it's thought to help strengthen nerve cell connections in brain regions that are involved in regulating mood, thinking and behaviour. So it sounds all pretty good, doesn't it? And I'd argue that owning ESS shares leads to a similar state of mind. Right, to the presentation. Usual disclaimer. So essential metals, the key thing that we do have is a lithium spodumene resource in Australia, and there are only 13. There are 70 plus producing gold mines, so there are hundreds of gold deposits. So you've got to ask yourself the question, why are there only 13? And my view as a non-geologist is that they're difficult to find, technically, but also getting access to prospective ground. So I'm not such a big believer in that there's going to be hundreds of lithium deposits in Australia found anytime soon. Our deposit is very fortunate, and it's in a strategic location. So it's right next to a main highway that runs from Kalgoorlie to Esperance. It's literally 10 kilometres to the west of the highway. There's an all-weather access road that runs from the highway to within 100 kilometres, couple of hundred metres from the deposits. That's already been put in place for us. There's railway, gas pipeline, water pipeline running along that highway. And it's a very flat-lying area, so it's a perfect place to develop a mine. We're well funded. We've got $11 million in the bank. We've also got some listed options that expire in November, well in the money, so they'll bring in another $3 million. And we're getting ourselves development ready, so we're taking those steps on the bureaucracy side of things, or regulatory side of things, so things like environmental surveys, heritage surveys, etc. And we're making sure that we position ourselves from the very start to be ESG focused, and that's, I believe, is quite important. And we think our timing's right. We're building we think towards the end of the year a pretty good business case, and looking to sort of a post-25 production scenario if it all comes together for us. So the company Essential Metals has been around for a while. It's predominantly a retail investor base, so investors like yourselves, and that means that we get a lot of liquidity, so we get good trading volumes. We've had a pretty good run over the last 12 months, so anyone who jumped on board 12 months ago would be reasonably happy, probably a five-bagger. And we've got a very experienced board and management team, so all the people involved have been involved with mining for a long time, have been involved in exploration right the way through to production. So you've got a really steady pair of hands, experienced board, and a very enthusiastic management team. So I've mentioned a couple of these things. We're well funded, in a fantastic location. So we're in the Yilgarn Craton. We termed it the lithium corridor. We're surrounded by 5 of those 13 lithium deposits, all within 100 kilometres. So we know that our geology is really good. And we've got a very big footprint in terms of the project size. And like any good junior, we've got a couple of gold projects in the back pocket that we work on sort of at a low-key level. They're actually quite good. And we've got some sort of passive, what I call passive investments in minority free carried interests in a couple in joint ventures covering gold and nickel. This is just giving you a bit of I suppose, a snapshot of where we are today and possibly where we can get to. You can see that we're, I would say undervalued compared to some of our pre-production peers. I've got to be careful about making sure we're lined up against similar class of company, but you can see that someone like Core Lithium, they've set the benchmark for what I call a tier 2 smaller deposit size. Certainly got a fantastic market valuation, and we're trying to emulate that as best we can. So the Pioneer Dome Lithium project, as I said, it's about 150 kilometres south of Kalgoorlie, about 50 kilometres north of Norseman. It's a well-established historical mining area, lots of mines around us, and so it's an area that is, from a permitting point of view, is well used to having mines get up and running. The terrain is flat-lying, it's lightly wooded. We've completed a flora and fauna baseline survey last year, and that showed there were no red flags. And we also have a mining agreement in place with the Naju people, who are the native title custodians of the land. So that's a really good head start for us as well. And most importantly, of course, we've got a lithium resource. So at the moment it stands at 11.2 million tonnes at 1.21%. It's made up of 3 mineralised pegmatites, Cade, Davy and Halla. Cade accounts for about 70% of that resource. It's a really big, fat, fairly homogeneous style of mineralisation, fairly consistent in its spodumene content, so that's a really big plus for us. And we've already completed some metallurgical test work on the fresh rock zone of Cade that show we can get some really good recoveries, and this is all obviously first pass scoping study level test work, and it can be optimised, and we'll do that in due course. So that just gives you a bit of a visual on where these pegmatites lie in proximity to each other. So it's roughly 2.5 kilometres from the west one to the east one. So there's plenty of ground for us to look for more lithium-bearing pegmatites in and around the 3 that we already know of. You can see from the line, the drill traces there, that we've had a few goes along strike and in some other anomalous areas. One of the challenges we do have is that there's a fair bit of ground cover through that area, and that provides a bit of a mask for finding lithium pegmatites. And that's also, I think, is one of the reasons why not too many have been found so far, is that unless they're sticking out of the ground, they become a lot harder to find. And you might have seen yesterday we put out some numbers. These numbers are really important from the management's perspective. We drilled the top sort of 40 metres, 50 metres of Cade and Davy, and the purpose of that was to just find out whether there's much weathering that has gone on in that top 40 metres, because that can lead to lithium depletion. And you can see from there that we've got some stunning numbers, good widths, and some really good grades too. So that's a really big tick for us. And now what we'll do is select some of that drill core and put it through metallurgical test work. And that, by doing that, we've de-risked these ore bodies from surface, because they all come to surface, right the way through the resource from a metallurgical point of view. And step 2 of the second sort of important program that we're undertaking at the moment, and we've just started, is drilling below, so down plunge of the Cade deposit. Cade deposit is 20 to 30 metres wide. You can see some of the grades are really high grade, and it's still open at depth. So we need to actually keep going on this to understand how it evolves at a deeper level. And so that program will probably take us about 2.5 months, and then we've got to wait unfortunately another 2 to 3 months for assays, because the labs are completely backlogged. So I'm hoping that by the end of September, early October, we've completed this drilling, we've got the assays back, and then we're in a position to upgrade our resource. You can see for the Davy deposit there are fewer holes in it. It's a lot more variable in terms of thickness and grade, so we need to learn more about it. So you can see that we're drilling some holes to the north and to the south of Davy, so along strike, and we'll also put 3 holes what we're calling down dip, because we don't really know the true direction yet. It looks like it might be plunging south, which is opposite to Cade, which looks like it plunges north. So it's a really important drill program. I think this unlocks more tonnes to add to our resource, So it's pretty, we're waiting with bated breath. I think about this every night. So what we're also doing is getting ourselves development ready. So I mentioned the fact that we've completed a flora and fauna survey. We've also completed a very high-level hydrology study that shows there's multiple water sources in and around our project, which is pretty important. We will be completing some metallurgical test work that's now being prepared to get underway. And we've got a mining agreement in place and a really good relationship too with the Naju people. So the idea will be that we'll get a mining lease in place towards the end of this year, and that just again helps us get development ready. So from a timeline perspective, you can see here is, we're always exploring as well. So it's a sort of a three-pronged attack. We want to find more mineralised pegmatites to add to our resource, build a more robust business case. We've completed our March drilling program. We've just released the assays. They've given us a big tick to say that the upper zones are mineralised with high-grade spodumene. We'll now do the metallurgical test work, which de-risks the two main ore bodies. And now we're drilling deeper to add more tonnes. So we're improving the quality of the resource and also the quantity. That's the objective. And so in the December quarter, where I think we're in a position where we update our resource and we complete a scoping study, or at least commence it, and I'd like to see it done before the end of the year. One of the long lead items in a scoping study, of course, is metallurgical test work, so we've already completed that, so that'll help us keep the time frame pretty short. And so I suppose just to circle back to, we look undervalued relative to peers, and why is that? We haven't updated the resource since September 2020, so it's been a while, and the reason being is that during 2020, we had a market cap of between $10 and $15 million. Lithium was on the nose. We couldn't afford to spend money on the lithium side, so we focused on our gold projects. It was only about a year ago that we were able to pivot back back onto lithium to become more aggressive on it. So this will be our first resource upgrade in quite a while, but I'm pretty confident that it'll be a good result. Just sort of stepping back as well, just to give you a bit of history to the company. The company started looking for lithium back in 2016, just as lithium was on the rise. And the very first drill program targeted some pegmatites up in the northeast corner of the project tenure, and also then on the midpoint. You might be able to see the label Sinclair there. So that was the third pegmatite target that was drilled. And Sinclair was an 80-metre wide outcropping pegmatite, so it was a very good target. The geochem anomaly was quite strong. And lo and behold, the first hole that went through discovered what was what we understand to be the third world primary cesium deposit. So when you're looking for lithium, you look for LCT pegmatites, lithium, cesium, tantalum, and in super rare occurrences where you get an agglomeration of cesium. To sort of cut a long story short, the company focused on the cesium for 2.5 years, and it sort of was a bit of a blessing and a curse. We made $10 million out of it, but we weren't looking for lithium during that period. But really, we've been looking for lithium for the last 12 months in earnest, and so I'd argue that our tenure is very lightly done and underexplored. I'll just quickly touch on two gold projects that we have. They're both mature, early stage gold exploration projects just east of Kalgoorlie. We've just completed some drilling, RC drilling at the Guards prospect, which is a large porphyry, sorry, I shouldn't say large, a long porphyry. It's only about 5 to 10 metres wide. It's not a company maker at this point in time, but we think we can add value to it, and there's some hungry mills around us, so we think we'll be able to monetise that at some future point. I touched on some joint ventures that we have. These are projects where we've taken the decision to step back because we've got something better to focus on and give these to the right parties. In particular, we've got a nickel joint venture with the guys who are behind Jubilee Mines. So these guys understand nickel and they're spending their money, and we get a 25% free carry up to a decision to mine. So just to cap off, we're well funded. We're heading towards a development opportunity. We've got a lithium resource that's still growing, and importantly too, we haven't signed any offtake. And the right time for offtake it depends who you speak to. I think that there's certainly the interest that we get tells me that there's a lot of parties out there who haven't sorted out their offtake yet. So we're in a strong bargaining position, but I'd like to see a line of sight towards a production scenario, and I'm sure the offtaker would do it as well before committing to that. So we'll just see how that plays out. It won't be next month though. There you go. And please come up to the booth. There's a couple of the management team here as well, so we can answer any further questions that you have. Thank you.